Peace, fam. Salute, support. DOA TBM. Your boy finds a neutron. Maff the concept. We're gonna be looking at some statements that were made by Tyrese, which has had quite a few people talking and chiming in with their responses. So we're gonna check that out and give our reaction to it. So I believe Matthew's got the Tyrese
Yeah,
statement up from Academics. I don't know if you can read it out for us.
yeah, hello everybody. What's up? I'll read out the post. So this is what the brother Tyrese said. Blessings to him. Sometimes I wish I was born Latino. I mean, the Latin community is grounded in family, loyal entrepreneurs, businessmen or women literally represent the dream, the grind, the hustle, doing whatever it takes to stick together against all odds. If us in hold on, bear with me. If us in the black culture were more grounded in these integral, magical nuances of us, we will be dominant. Don't let it go forward a bit more. I've learned a lot from the Jewish community together eating dinner every Friday together. I've learned a lot about the Muslim community throughout all my travels in the Middle East. They have a father structure where they honor their fathers. The Middle East, the thinking and the mentality is that they would much rather have a son over a daughter because they know that there's leadership of the father. A man being the head of the household. I have no idea how we lost our way. We can't get anything done accomplished as a fragmented culture. Insecure, threatened by each other, competitive towards our own race, killing ourselves every single day. Previously, the majority of us as black men and the millions are locked up in prison. Of course we are. We are beyond powerful, influential and successful, but imagine if we all linked up like other communities have linked up. Poured and built up on each other instead of moving like a fragmented and dysfunctional. We have what it takes to take over the world. We are nothing trying to do it alone. Please chime in. We'd love to know your thoughts on this. That's what I've got up to so far. If there's any more to it.
Yeah, no, I believe that's it, the full statement. I know a lot of people ran with the initial opening line of sometimes I wish I was born Latino, and that's been, widely.
That's out of context for people.
Yeah, that's been that's been widely reported without people checking the full statement. But I mean, even checking how he starts off with that, I wish I was born Latino. I mean this. I mean, the Latin community is grounded in family, loyal entrepreneurs, businessmen, and women. Literally represent the dream, the grind, the hustle, do whatever it takes to stick together against all odds. Now, I'm gonna start with that line and be like,
I want to say
he's
first
making
off,
the inference that black people don't actually do those things, which I think is incorrect because I feel as though even though it may not be to the capacity that he's looking at or that he probably wants or identifies with other groups, but surely he cannot say that the black community isn't grounded in family because family is always important to the black community. Loyalty, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and women representing the dream and the grind. What he's saying, I feel as though we see a huge representation of that from black people and stuff. Also, I mean, I don't know if he's saying he feels that people aren't coming together enough on a wider scale, but just that initial statement, I feel as though there are black entrepreneurs and people that are standing our family and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think?
I feel that he's probably talking more so about his localized experience to where he is because when you think about black culture, there's many different black cultures right now. And for him to directly go and say Latino, he's from what? So I'm sure he's probably seeing something that he's probably seeing that the Latino community have, but he's not seeing probably someone from Southern America, Midwest America, or somewhere else in America that might have a family type ethos that he's looking for. I think that I think for the rest of the world, seeing this is not looking at the fact that, that he might just be talking about where he's from in California, what he sees regularly. Because it's funny that he said Latino and not like Caribbean American or Caribbean South American. Like, well, he did say South American, but he didn't bring like the Jamaicans or any of the others that are in the same pigmentation. So I think this is more of a thing that he sees in front of him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that could be an interesting dynamic. Watts, we do know obviously in the West Coast they do have a big Latin American community and stuff
Yeah.
also. So
They have a very interesting history. Apparently, like outside of Watts and other parts of California, there seems to be a consistent confliction between the Mexican brothers and the FBA brothers. But in Watts, apparently, they have like a unification. And this is where I was like, there might be a separation in different black cultures in California, America, as the people that are from Watts originate from Southern America, as there's other people in California that are from there. So I think he might be talking about different black cultures that are in front of him, as opposed to the ones that are not in front of him, as the Latinos stick together. And there seems to be a unification between blacks and Latinos in Watts. So it might be interesting. There might be a unification. The Latinos there might be the reason why they're unified a bit. I don't know. I'm not from Watts, but I'm just going from what I'm reading.
yeah, no, it's an interesting stance, and one of the things he says, if us as a culture, as a black culture, were more grounded in these integral, magical nuances, we would be dominant. And some feel as though there's more opposition systematically towards black people that makes them move how they do, in terms of maybe just sticking to their own family groups. And some would argue with other groups that may be more connected, but some of it may be a forced connection. Some of them may actually would want to express more individuality, but it's not something that is afforded to them because they have to always come back into the wider collective group. I mean, some of the points he did make that I thought stood out. He said he learned a lot from the Jewish community, sticking together, eating dinner every Friday together and stuff. And I mean, one thing we do know is important is obviously families and communities, and in the modern society that we see nowadays, especially with a lot of black people that whether they working, they hustling, whatever it is they're doing, sometimes around that kind of family breakdown where they probably aren't coming together every day or every week and sitting around the table and eating and having dinner and stuff together. I mean, how important do you think things like that are?
I was thinking of a very, very good point as you were saying these things. You have to remember, for him speaking as an American citizen in America, you gotta realize the relationship with these different individual backgrounds that he's talking about and their relationship with America. He didn't mention the Italians, but most of those people, when they came into America, they came in with a consensus of either working or conquering. So when you think of how a lot of black Americans, different situations, I'm not going to umbrella everyone, how the black American relationship with current America isn't been one where it's a family going to come and help you. Hence why the culture of the Latinos is, he's going to help his cousin or his third cousin or his sixth cousin. Whereas I think because of the nature of how they've always been going at black Americans in America, I think there's more distrust between the black community, and also there isn't a sense of unification that the Latino has. The Latino can say, hey, I can just go down south a bit more and I'm in my continent. Whereas with black folks, so on and so forth in America, it's a disparaging conversation between if they're from Africa, or if they're from Africa and they're no longer African, or if they've been indigenous there for how long before. So I think that conversation and having that dialogue be a thing that separates people that look the same, as opposed to the communities that he's talking about. They all have a relationship of being together, coming to America and sticking together in America. Whereas the black person, it's either they took away his family or he came here without a family. So like when you think of it like that, like because he if you realize he didn't mention Africans, because I was gonna say, I'm not this. You can go even to the Caribbean and so on and so forth. They have family ethoses and what he's talking about.
Of course.
But I think it's an American situation and I think it's a localized American situation. I don't think it's a broad all black situation. Because I grew up. Well, I don't know how true the movies are, but I've heard of Southern hospitality.
Oh yeah, no, it exists. It definitely exists.
Yeah, you know what I mean, and that's why for me, as a person from Jeddah, I rival that with saying with Hijazi hospitality. It's like we want you to leave and say, "Hey, them people was nice. We want to go back there." You know what I mean? So that's one thing that we've understood about the South in America. They're a bit more open. Some Americans might get at me for this. I think they're like the Caribbeans and Africans. A lot of the Southern Americans, how they receive you.
Do you think Do you think you made a good point there? Some good points, and when you mentioned, he only mentioned the Jewish community, the Latino community, and I believe he mentioned the Muslim community, saying that they travel together, and what he saw from them in the Middle East, and then the kind of paternal family structure and stuff. And when we look at that, and like you made a great point with the Latinos still having that kind of group that they fall under, and obviously Muslims having a collective then under being Muslim or Islam that they fall under. Do you think with the black diaspora there's too much diversity then as it is to be contained in that same type of way? As you said, he could be speaking just in regards to blacks in America in a certain region, whereas there's a lot of differentiation between other blacks in the diaspora around America and the world.
From an outside angle, I argue that the Black American or Black Americans have a better chance of unifying together under one consensus than black people as just a broad term across the world. Why? Because even if I don't believe they have a lost history, but even if they said they consensually can say, oh, we can make a new history. But the only thing is they don't have a national front, and any national fronts that they have, they label them as terrorist groups. Because I'm surprised as to why he didn't use the NOI or FOI as examples of black Americans who are in California that actually assimilate in a way. Because he mentioned Muslims, but he mentioned Middle Easterns. So I'm thinking like, okay, that Muslim is broad, like the majority of the Muslims in the world are in Africa. But there's also FBA Muslims, even if they're not they don't follow a certain degree, they're still under the category of reading the Quran. So I don't see why he hasn't looked to those that are in front of him in his region as an example. That might be a regional situation.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I believe, I know Tyrese definitely familiar with the NOI and stuff. I believe he's, done maybe some work or some, he's connected with them in the past in different capacities.
They've been doing a lot of good things for the community, the NOI and FOI, barring the creeds of Islam and all that. And for people that are just like that, for people that don't even care about religion, they do things for the black community. So yeah, they be doing their bits.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say, he didn't mention any of that. Now, I don't take it as some people look at it as odd. It's like all the way, sorry, bear with me. I'm good. Just got a little frog in my throat, but yeah, some people they take it as a negative, where they see it's like, oh, but what he's saying is negative towards the black community. Why do we always, kind of look at ourselves in that way in comparison to other groups when their situations aren't as comparable? I don't necessarily take it that way as him being negative. I think, as he said, it's probably his experience, stuff that his felt, stuff that he saw. He mentions his travels around the Middle East and stuff. And one of the things he does say he would like to know people's thoughts on it. And, I don't think he was coming off in a way like he was trying to denigrate the community. I think, if anything, he was just trying to spark some discourse and stuff as well, which I do see, it being a useful kind of axiom for some conversation, for people to look at things and stuff. But
to be honest, I mean, because I do a lot of different research, in some of my people call me a placist. Like, I focus on a place and then I study it and then I move on. So, what's his name? I was watching an interview by rapper Simba on Maff expert opinion thing, and he said something very, very interesting. I'm not sure where in California Simba is from, but I know he's from that state. And he said, "Do you know what it's like being black around black people that think they're Mexican?" And he was attesting to the culture. So, like, it goes hand in hand with possibly an idea or a mind frame that works around that region, as you've got two people that are black. One says he wish he was born Latino. I don't think he believes that. I think he just wishes that he had certain things from those elements that were implemented in his black household. Hopefully he gets out of trauma. But I believe that it might be that because in California a lot of the Mexicans outnumber the black folk, and they get to see the unification of these people saying that, okay, we're either not from here or we're from here and this is taken from us, we're just going to continue with it. Now, with the Latino community, that for I hope I'm not offending anyone, for a lot of them that work at a lower rate than an American citizen, I feel that there might be a disparity between being a citizen and still not feeling welcome, as opposed to seeing people that have acknowledged themselves not being citizens and still being able to work together and make it work even better than those that are from the place.
No, I think I could definitely see some credence in that, and that's interesting. I haven't heard those statements myself prior that you said Simba made about black people.
And it was, I can't remember which number episode, but yeah, it was a very interesting interview. I respect his lyrical capabilities, and he's an entertaining artist. I think people should listen to him more.
It's an interesting stance, because I mean, I don't know his full context of how he meant it, but I got a few homies out there in the West, and one of them actually, he quite vocal a lot of the times where he speaks about, dare I say, the prejudice that he experiences from the Latino community. But not only that, he would claim that they have copied a lot from the black community, as opposed to, so I guess he would look at it the opposite way and say that they're trying to be like the black community, or they've taken this element or that element. So
I think a lot of cultures, or I think the beginning influence or the dominant culture might be a bit of a reason as to why certain things might be the way they are. There is an individual called Mr. Carter. He's got the Hip Hop University, and I was listening to one of his podcasts on the Dukan show, what was in Dubai, and he said that they actually study, or they teach the students the difference as to why in California they have lowriders, and why in New York they'd have Jeeps. It's like, it's too cold in New York for you to have a lowrider. That's why they don't have them. And we're having a Jeep like that in the West Coast, you burn. And then these are little things that we don't understand and know that makes a full culture. You know what I mean? So from the outside looking in, you know what I mean? Like, with graffiti being, I'm gonna speak from a hip hop angle because I can't speak from being an American citizen angle. So, looking at graffiti for an example, I could particularly attest that there's possibly more influence in graffiti culture from the Latino community on the West Coast, but there's possibly more dance culture and community from the black community in the West Coast, with the emergence of G-Funk and a few other things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we know that different communities have added on
to different parts of that region's culture, or any region's culture.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You know, because I think, here's what I've realized, it's what people eat. If the people there reject a certain type of food, they've not assimilated with them. But if a people accept the food, they know them and they're willing to stay around them. And that's what I've noticed about certain folks.
We know most people in the West, they love them some tacos and some burritos and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. But the more North California you go, the less racial it gets between black and brown. That's a Southern California thing.
Yeah, you got the. I think the Norteños and the Serenios. I think the Norteños. Even in the prison system is quite interesting. There are.
American prison system is very different. It's different from England.
Yeah,
Very
you
different.
can have split Latino groups where I think one of them are kind of more aligned with, let's say, the black groups as well, and then you've got one that's more aligned with the white groups.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. I'm not too particular on how certain prison culture works, especially as the Latin community and the Southern American community have a different program than black folk.
Yeah,
Apparently,
they have
like
a different card. They have a
yeah,
whole different pro. And I mean, even between those communities, different. Like you don't just have one Latin community. You got the North and the South. So you got the Norteños, and you got the Serenios. So I'm
and
hopefully
then you've got the
peace.
different ethnic backgrounds of like you've got the different ones that are like Mexican, Peruvian, and like they're a very big ethnic. They're a very big ethnic diversity. When you say Latino,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
of
that's
course,
a very
because I mean
broad
that
spectrum.
can include people from DR, Dominicans,
Yeah,
a lot of and some of those in a different kind of way people do associate back with the black community. I mean, it's interesting because there's some of them that are as dark as dare I say
some of
regular,
them as dark as me will tell you I'm not black,
and then but yeah, they'll tell you that they're
but I
not.
don't think I think there is a narrative that we're not listening. I always tell people, even white folk, I don't like the white narrative white people have with white people because it stays with them. Here's what I think that the Latino might be saying when he says I'm not black. I think he might be saying I'm not a U.S. citizen, or as in I'm not black culture. The same way when we talk to white folk and say, when we say white or black, we're not talking skin deep, we're talking culture deep.
I mean, the thing is, I know everybody love their culture. The thing is, a lot of them they do adopt major part from what I see of
Yeah.
the black culture, and but they don't holistically accept it when it comes to, I guess, giving themselves a cultural identity. They would stick to whatever their group is. If some of them would be very adamant, I'm Dominican, or I'm
Well, do you know something? The Latin community, even if they said that they're not black or so on and so forth, they have something that they can go under. They say Arabic and Spanish is not that far off. There's a lot of Arabic words in Spanish, but if you realize in the Western world, Spanish Latinos, Spanish speaking Americans, and so on and so group themselves under the language group the same way Arabs group themselves under the language
that's
group.
a fact.
Yeah, so like when you got black people that don't necessarily agree, like there isn't a consensus of all black people being Anglican because you speak English. Like that conversation isn't even in the black household. Do you know what I mean? We haven't even had it on, like that's the new conversation we're supposed to have. But right now, everybody who's black, if they speak English, they're playing my flag better than yours, my master better than yours. When really it shouldn't be that, because the Latino is like, I'm just here, but I'm around my people.
No, that's a fact, and I believe I watched. I've watched some various different documentary stuff, and I've actually saw some Latinos in other forms of media saying like there's a difference between how they perceive themselves, because in their own nations they don't look at things like the Americans do. So in the Americans, where they might say, okay, your skin color is a certain tone, or you have this kind of mix, you automatically, especially from the one drop rule,
But
they
with the other cultures, it's like
they would
it's either
class
you're
you as
one of
black.
us or not.
But yeah, they said they don't do that there, where they look at you and say, oh, you have to be black or this or that. So I think
Yeah.
there's a difference within that as well also.
I mean, I grew up seeing Mexican Americans in Saudi. I grew up seeing Mexican American mixed families, like half Saudi, half American, Mexican. May God rest the soul of Miss Maria. She was a teacher in my mom's school. We grew up grew up playing. Oh, what time is it, Mr. Wolf? At their house, you know what I mean? So like when with my experience of seeing Latino families, Arab families, and all of that, I don't really think it's down to the race or the culture. I think what Tyrese is not realizing is that all these other places that he went to were outside America. They have the freedom to be able to do that. He doesn't. You know, and all the people that he mentioned came to the America with the freedom to do that, even if they were oppressed in America coming to do that.
No, but it's like we were saying slightly off topic the other day. We were speaking about different groups and stuff within the UK, and I think I said something similar when I was saying like we were saying like looking at the condition or the position of some black people within the UK, and I was saying, well, other groups who have come over, they've come over with that mindset to either work or take over, or do stuff collectively for their nation or their group and all that stuff. Whereas it hasn't been necessarily the same for black people. Even within the UK, you've had blacks either come over to work or some will come over to do different stuff, but not on the same kind of capacity like other groups. I think we're more assimilate into the system.
We're not the type of people to want to conquer. That's why we never came to Europe. Yeah,
we're not trying to take over the places. I think we're more assimilate into the laws of the land and stuff, and try not to rock the boat too much, which I think is an interesting point. Because one of the things Tyrese said, which some people won't agree with, but he speaks on, I guess, us having the ability to take over the world and that stuff. And some people feel like, well, you know what, that's not our place. So it's not our place to try and take over the world.
I was about to say he's adopted the mentality of those that are not him, saying that take over the world for what?
Like why should we? That's my why should is that something we should be trying to achieve? Should we be is that different to unity? I mean, so that's a question.
I mean, this is my opinion, but this is just take over the world for what? When everyone knows you're gonna die at some point, like there's no point in trying to take you won't live long enough to enjoy it. Like that's what I don't get about people. You know what I mean? When they go for like, I'm not talking about those who are in dire poverty and all of that. I'm talking about the ones who don't need. You know what I mean? They go take extra moves to go get things that they don't need. You're not gonna live to enjoy it. Most of the people I know that live in big houses, they got all that extra shit. You don't see their dad or mom. Their dad and mom are working. Their mom and dad are working. Like, what you gonna do? And like the people that rob millions and all that, what you gonna do? Rob another million? How lucky are you gonna to keep doing that? Like, you have common sense, people. But common sense isn't common.
Well, it definitely isn't common. It's uncommon sense, man.
But I'll tell you a story. Like, what's his name? That relates. Well, let's go back to Tyrese. Let's keep it on this topic because we haven't gotten to the other part where he feels that they're killing each other and all that. Like, I mean, I'm glad he's expressing himself, but there's a difference between them being in projects, which is literally a project, and then someone being free in his continent. Like, he's not considering what's against him.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because that's why I say these things aren't exactly linear or comparable in a way for him to say, okay, let's compare, the position that blacks in America, which I'm guessing for the most part he's speaking on, in contrast to what he may have witnessed in the Middle East, and obviously.
He's from the same state where the officer Christopher Dahmer was from. The cop who went rogue because he found out that there was corruption in the thingy. Like, and there's police gangs in California. So like, he's from a place where it's not built for him to do that.
Yeah. And notwithstanding the fact that some of the statements he's made in reference towards other groups, like there's no perfection from these other groups, so he may be talking about stuff that he's witnessed from the outside.
Where people are free to do that.
And anything from the outside can look good. Like, you can look at the Jewish community or the Muslim community or the Latino community or whoever is mentioned and say, oh, well, they're doing great, they've got all this stuff together. But a lot of it, sometimes everything that glitters isn't gold. Like, we hear a lot all the time, and especially within the UK, like when people talk about some of the the Asian community, and some people say the same thing, like, oh, they stick together so much and this, and then when you actually get into the nuances and you speak to some of the individuals and you go around them, you see that some of them actually are more kind of trapped in their group. Some of them would actually want out if they could get out. That's why we're seeing a lot of the women now kind of looking for different
I
men and
think it
stuff.
might be a new thing for the world to see black people express that emotion, or see famous black people express that emotion, especially as they would assume that a person that was in his position wouldn't feel like that.
That's a
I feel
good
like
point, but I
with
think
the rest
would
of the
would
world,
you agree though that he making an assumption where he kind of making it seem like these other groups have a level of, even though he's using
no,
the
he's just
example of
giving
what he
us his
wants.
viewpoint.
Yeah, but within that viewpoint, he's speaking on just like something that he saw, but he's not speaking on the other aspects of what he may not see. So not because you see like a group of people meeting together every Friday or every Sunday or whatever, it means that they're right and exact. You might be looking from the outside and say, "Oh wow, it looks great, all these people together," but they could actually be at loggerheads with each other in ways that you don't see. They could have other.
I think this is where I think the wording, or where some people need to discern, that I don't think he's idolizing the culture over idolizing certain actions and aspects that different cultures adopt. Because if he was to filter all of these things that he likes from these cultures, I don't think he's saying he wants a Latino wife. I don't think he wants a Jewish wife. I think he wants a black wife that has all of these qualities and all
Yeah,
of that
man.
for him as a black American.
Yeah, no, I'm with that, but I think he's still a bit. I don't want to say deluded, or it could be. I get where you're coming from in terms of some of the stuff you're pointing out, which could be useful. But I think there's a danger within that when you start looking at others, and you may not necessarily know too much yourself. You're just going from an outside standpoint, like, oh, hey, this group is great because they get together. I mean, if a bunch of, and this ain't about any groups, but if a bunch of look what we're seeing in the UK and stuff in a minute, like grooming gangs and all these things. So if a bunch of people get together and work together, yeah, 100%. So he's kind of speaking on how people work together collectively for a certain purpose, but that isn't always good. Sometimes sometimes that can
I'm
be
glad
bad.
that he's mentioning things on a positive light, because so those that would consider themselves enemy would love to bring about the fact that gangs and all of that work in organization and all that. But here's the thing: that's why they've weaponized hip hop and et cetera and et cetera. So with Tyrese's comments, for me, from my discernment, from my detection, it seems like he just wanted certain things in his household to go a certain way. And I feel like him saying that is making what it should do, is make people look at themselves and feel like, yo, are we actually connecting together beyond the fact that we just live together?
Or that we just look alike.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And or if we're just forced to be here because this is what it is. Because I don't think for those that are there in America, they wake up and they have a consensus of, yeah, we're all Black American, we're all working towards something together, as opposed to when you've got people that are Black coming from a certain country and they've got a consensus together. You know what I mean? The consensus of the Black American is still, how can I be considered a first-class citizen though I'm Black and I'm born here?
And I think I think that's a good point. We definitely want to hear everybody else's thoughts and stuff as well. But I think a great point on that is because if we look at even whether it's the UK or America, and you say, okay, you might have a Black group that comes over from, let's say, Africa, for instance. They may stick together more under that premise. However, those who are born in that region or grew up there, I think there's a higher sense sometimes of competition amongst each other as opposed to that unity. So maybe that's the point Tyrese is trying to draw down on, in terms of saying, well, let's get this thing a lot tighter and find that unification as opposed to all the competition.
Well, speaking on a big level on things, Black Americans haven't had a national freedom given to them by a greater power of America. Yeah, they had Lincoln and all that, but when we're talking about like Black folk, like from, let's say, from the African regions in West Africa and all that, the reason why they're able to come into England is because after the whole colonization and everything that happened, them guys got themselves into a war. And then they asked everyone else to help us. That's why Nigerians were flying in Burma. You know, I mean, that's why these people can come to England. There's a difference. Black Americans didn't have an apology given to them. Like, so that's why the countries, got their independence and all that, but they also had access to England because they participated in the war. The war was done on Black Americans. Not to laugh at them, I'd say the war was done on them.
Yes, do you say, as I said, do you think that then creates more separation in terms of the people being more competitive against each other as opposed to holding that camaraderie, as you said, like as opposed to,
Well, America's got a very competitive nature, hence why the Super Bowl is the biggest event in the world. And it's not America versus anyone else, it's America versus Americans. So I don't think America sets it up in a way for them to unify when they're in America. They'll unify when they're going somewhere else. But I don't think I don't think that's a narrative for them in the U.S. because that's why it's the National Basketball Association, and they take it way further than football hooligans, and they've got way more sports. They've got way more reasons to not be unified. This is not even on the black front. This is just on an American front.
Yeah, they lead in sports, but we know obviously sports being a global thing as well. Also,
but they take it patriotically. Whereas I don't think a lot of other people take it patriotically. They take it as a sport.
I think I think some white English people, they definitely consider themselves patriots or whatever.
I think there's a lot more to blame as to why people like Tyrese or people that are not as famous have that perspective that isn't just a black angle. You also have to realize the society that dominates the mentality. It's the biggest capitalist society, and it's the best at marketing. Like, it's the best at selling you something. So, like, if you're always going to have a society that's consuming, the one thing that they're never going to do is understand or introspect.
Mm.
So, like, when you think of it like that, you know what I mean? All the communities that he's mentioned, one of them, they come in together, and they come in on the basis of getting money, even if it's as little as they can, because the idea is that they're unified together for that money, whatever the currency is. The other one is, they're unified together to control the narrative. I'm not going to start a whole conversation about who controls the media, etc.
I know that can be a whole different quagmire.
I'm a Semite. I speak Arabic, so I'm just trying not to change the conversation. But for those who are looking at me, yes, I speak Arabic. You can't say nothing to me. Leave Fonzie alone. Do you know what I mean? So, as I was saying, so like when we think about all of those different situations that Tyrese is under, remember, like, there isn't one national black front. Like, people don't want to listen to the NOI or FOI completely. People don't want to listen to certain charities and all that. Whether it be a black reason or a national reason, you have to remember, America is a continent, not just a country.
Oh, yeah.
It's different, like, you know what I mean? Each state can be its own country, and California actually opted to try and leave and be its own country at one point. They didn't want to pay for taxes in Texas and all that. So, like, there's more of a cultural aspect that derives people that are there to not be together. Except that when you adopt it this is just my analysis, when you adopt it as a black American, all of the other ones that are not black American have a consensus that they agree on. That's what I've just detected from it.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty spot on, man. We do see evidence of that. We do see those consensuses between these other communities, as you say, and it does, and in small pockets within different, what some may call fringe groups or groups within the black community. As you mentioned, like the NOI, the Moorish Science Temple, and other groups of that nature.
Remember, they also have people that are possibly in their buildings trying to deter situations that would help things. Because you remember, there are elements in the government that are going to be for people, and there are elements in the government that are not for people. It just depends. Like, there's a lot of people when you talk about governments and citizens and all that, so you can't really umbrella anyone. I watched an interview of an ex-police officer, a black guy in America. He said In a police force, you can have 3,000 members, but 10 of them, if you just have 10 bad ones, you can terrorize the whole situation. Now think about that for a second.
Yeah, no, I mean, we know that it can often. I think there's a misconception where people think it's so. Let's look at terrorism. Let's look at even the KKK, racism, and loads of different isms and schisms. Oftentimes, it's small groups of people that cause the most disruption,
Ruckus.
and it's not the a lot of times people blame the wider community and say and it's usually sometimes just a small group
Yeah.
that's rogue and they're able to cause that damage. Sometimes it can be more impactful when it happens that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the world's controlled now, by the few that control the majority.
Yep.
But that's when you want to seek control. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot going on in this day and age, and what I'm wanting to see more is more people like Tyrese, yourself, and I actually be strong in our questionings, because this seems all like a big question from Tyrese, and it's not the only dumb questions on unasked ones. And I feel like, I mean, for some people that are not black that would look at Tyrese, I think back in 2010 they put him and Tyson Beckford amongst the top 10 most handsome males in America. So then for that outlook, for people to then hear this narrative that he said, I'm thinking like, I don't think that you should ostracize him. I think you need to think about why someone that you would see as so powerful thinks like that about himself, and how you haven't been able to see that person was hurting.
Yeah, I know it's a fact. I mean, he definitely shouldn't be ostracized, and I agree with you 100% on that. That's why I'm glad that he made the statements. Whether everybody agree or not, it's good that he put it out there so we can even have these builds and just have these conversations around it. Obviously we're gonna chime in and give our thoughts. We definitely love to know other people's thoughts as well. Also, so if you guys joined in on Spreaker, you can comment on Spreaker. If you join us on YouTube,
for sure. I mean, here's another thing. Like this, him saying he wanted to be Latino doesn't necessarily mean he's anti-black, like he wants to bleach. He's just saying he's seeing what the Latino culture is doing. They could have been black Latinos, they could have been brown Latinos, and they could have been blonde as well. We don't know. So it's a wide spectrum. He's just talking about, if I wanted to filter out this, I would say he's not happy with how black people have adopted their cultures in the language of English. I can say that much, because here's the thing. If you're going to talk about Latino cultures, there's a lot of black Latinos. He didn't make it a black or white thing. He made it a language thing. The same way when they say Semitic, anti-Semitic. Right now, when you say born Latino, he's not saying he wish he was born in a different pigment.
Yeah, but if
he makes it that's different. That's brother. We need to talk to you. You need to love yourself, etc., etc.
Well, I think you're right, but I think that's one of the issues with black people, especially when it comes to nationalism, because everybody else is he made the comparison to, as you said, he was comparing groups. He said Jewish community. He said Latino community. He said Muslim community. Now, any of those communities could be any creed, any kind of character, any race. It's not exclusive to just one. None of those, even the Latino. But when it comes to the black community, I think that's the issue, because he says, black man, black community. So it's like you comparing the black community then, which in a sense cannot be kind of changed, because it's one identification, and it's not a national identification, but it's like an identity based thing. So you're gonna take that, and then as you said, he's comparing that to other communities that can be mixed. So even though he hasn't made it a black and white issue, he's kind of put some unique kind of inferences in there.
If I was to look at it, I'd say in the classification of the terms that he's put and what he's alluding to, he's talking about language groups. He's talking about the Latin language, he's talking about the Hebrew language, then he's talking about the Arabic language. So that means I can say, brother, pick whichever one you want. Just, are you saying you don't want to be that culture in your skin is a different topic. Because if he wanted to be any of those cultures, but it was in his own skin, for me as a person who's not FBA, it doesn't matter what background you're, I can mix with you. But when he's addressing black folk as a black American, as a black citizen, I don't have a stick in the fight. I can only give an opinion as a person with melanin, a big nose, and coarse hair.
Yeah, no, it's real. And you know, he can always learn another language or another culture if that's what he wanted to do.
But here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's a very interesting conversation because he has his own culture. I mean, FBAs have multiple cultures. So that's why I'm thinking, like, I mean, if I was FBI, I'd ask him, I'm like, who are you talking to? You talking to the folk that are around you? You talking to the folk that you've never met?
Well, I think people feel that there's a common, not misconception or even just a common way of thinking with some black people in that regard where I don't know, some people I guess some might call it a self hate thing. Some might call it just.
Actually, you've got me to a point, Fonzie. To be honest, yeah, no. As I've been around the very few Mexican Americans that I've been around, they are hospitable people. But you know why? It's because they're closer, like I said, they're closer to their home continent and they're closer to third world situations. So this is why I'm thinking, okay, you know when you deal with people that deal with third world country situations, America, England, Australia, Japan, Tokyo, those are first world situations. Do you know what I mean? But when you deal with people that are in third world situations, for an example like Jamaica or what's his name, Cuba, even though Cuba's got a very good medical situation. But like when you think about those type of people, they have a better understanding of everything is not money, 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 because they say hello to their neighbors when they walk outside. Do you know they're close? When I say this, I'm not slighting Black Americans. I'm talking about people that come from cultures that are closer to being around earth, being around nature, where food isn't dependent on cash. It's more so dependent on who's going to consume it, and someone needs to consume it. The same way like when we go to Spanish Town Market, yeah, there's everybody selling food, and what they don't sell, they'll eat. And if you can't sell it and you're full, you're going to give it to someone who needs it.
No, that's a fact.
So that's a very different culture that they come from, and that's an understanding that they have coming from outside of America. Whereas America went through its own industrial situation, destroys its own industrial situation, even white or black sometimes. You know what I mean? Whereas the American himself hasn't had the time to do that unless he comes from Southern America, where he has to be rural. Like when I'm noticing that, because then I'm thinking like, you know something, between the African, the Arab, the Latin American, and so on and so forth, they all get along and they all understand certain situations because they understand the world that comes outside of being a Western world, even if they are Western themselves. Whereas the Westerner himself, if he's been there for 3 or 4 generations, he doesn't know anything but where he's at.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, we do see a lot of that mindset carried over from individuals, you know.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's a lot going there. And, you know, for Tyrese to feel that way, I feel, hopefully this helps a lot of young black, whether FBA or non-FBA in America, outside America, to really have a look into history, to make sure that they like themselves, even if they're not getting what is advertised on television and so on and so on. Like, because, I mean, it's a human right to like yourself, no matter what you are, black, white, or so on and so forth. It just happens to be that there are some people that won't say they're Latino. Some people wish they might want to be white. You know what I mean? And the problem isn't wanting to be white. The problem is you not liking yourself to get to the point you want to feel that way.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
A lot of what needs to be done, you know, my brother.
It does, man. It's getting there. I mean, like, I'm glad I'm not slighting Tyrese. I'm not slighting people that look like him. That's just what the individuals felt. And it took him how long for him to express that? Imagine how many other kids feel like that. At least they can get to express it now.
Yeah,
like we didn't know that this is how he felt in Too Fast and Furious. We didn't know that Black Tar felt like that. That's his rap name.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting one, man. Well, we want to know everybody else's thoughts as well, so definitely hit us up in the commentary with that.
Take care, people. I mean, much appreciated, Fonzie. But also, another thing about Watts. The reason why I paid attention to Watts is because I heard a song by O3 Greedo just before he went into jail. He's free now, but he had a song, and he said at the beginning of it, in No Jumper interview, he said, where he's from, people either almost make it or you just don't. And I was like, that must be really, really sad. He's like, so many people either almost got to the NFL, died, or went to the NFL court case, was about to go NBA, something happened. And just to hear that, like, where I'm from, you either almost make it or you don't, that hurt me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I've never been to Watts or anything, but just to hear that, yo, if is that really a reality? Like, that's a reality for some people, because I can know some people in Africa, they can just move and make it.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate, and that's one of the things that we're definitely calling for: a change in reality and a change in lives, you know, and a change in the mindset, you know, because
there's a change in lens view as well.
100% it's necessary, man.